Another day, another story. The story's name is Revenge is No Solution. Scientist Newton said that every action has a reaction and that the process is more severe, strong, and horrible, the more its reaction is dangerous and severe. For years, the city had been plagued by a series of murders. Young women would disappear, and their bodies would be found days later, mutilated, and tortured beyond recognition. The police had no leads, no suspects, and no idea how to catch the killer. But there was one person who knew exactly what was going on. Her name was Sarah, and she was the one responsible for the murders. Sarah was a quiet, unassuming woman who worked at a local coffee shop. She was friendly and polite to everyone who came in, and nobody suspected a thing. But beneath her friendly exterior, Sarah was a cold-blooded killer. It all started when Sarah was just a teenager. She had been raped by a group of boys at a party, and the trauma of that experience had stayed with her for years. One day, she snapped. She couldn't take it anymore. She wanted revenge. When Sarah decided to take revenge, she tried several ways and started kidnapping people by effort. Sarah could have carefully chosen her victims, identifying individuals who would be more likely to trust a stranger offering help. She could have posed as a lost hiker, a stranded motorist, or a person in distress, in order to gain the trust of her intended victim. Once the victim had let down their guard, Sarah could have used physical force or a weapon to subdue them and take them captive. Sarah has used his online deception. She could have created a fake persona online, posing as someone in need of assistance, and used social media or dating apps to communicate with potential victims. She could have manipulated her victims into meeting her in person, under the guise of offering help, before taking them captive. Sarah have stored her potential victims, studying their routines and habits, in order her kidnapping. She may have followed them in public places or observed their activities online, in order to determine the best time and place to carry out her plan. At first, Sarah had only intended to kill her rapists. But after she had gotten away with it, she found that she enjoyed the feeling of power it gave her. So she started killing other men who reminded her of her attackers. And then, one day, she decided to switch it up. She started targeting women instead. Sarah loved people to bleed and see them dying. Sarah had a type. She liked young, pretty women with long hair and delicate features. She would lure them into her car with promises of a ride home, then drive them to her secluded cabin in the woods. There, she would torture and kill them, reveling in their screams of pain and terror. Sarah had been killing for years, and she had never been caught. She was smart and careful, never leaving any evidence behind. But one day, her luck ran out. She had picked up a woman named Emily, who had somehow managed to escape from her clutches. Emily had been held captive by Sarah for several hours, bound and gagged in the basement of her secluded cabin in the woods. She had been beaten, tortured, and sexually assaulted, but she refused to give up hope. As Sarah went upstairs to fetch a drink, Emily heard the sound of a car approaching the cabin. She knew she had to act fast. She struggled against the ropes that bound her, pulling and twisting her hands until she finally managed to loosen them. She then removed the gag from her mouth and took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. As Sarah returned to the basement, Emily pretended to still be bound and motionless on the floor. Sarah approached her, gloating about what she was going to do next. That was when Emily made her move. She kicked Sarah hard in the knee, causing her to stumble and fall to the ground. Emily then sprinted towards the stairs, determined to escape. She reached the top and saw that the front door was locked. She quickly looked around and found an open window. She climbed out of it and ran into the surrounding woods, using her knowledge of the area to find her way. Emily knew that Sarah would be coming after her, so she tried to put as much distance between them as possible. She ran through thick underbrush, jumped over fallen logs, and waded through streams, her heart pounding in her chest. She could hear Sarah's footsteps and her maniacal laughter as she gave chase. Finally, Emily spotted a clearing ahead. She ran towards it, knowing that there was a road on the other side. She burst out of the trees and saw a car approaching. She ran towards it, waving her arms and screaming for help. The car screeched to a halt, and the driver got out, a concerned look on his face. Emily collapsed in front of him, sobbing and shaking uncontrollably. She told him everything that had happened, and he immediately called the police. Thanks to Emily's bravery and quick thinking, the police were able to track down Sarah and bring her to justice. Emily's escape plan had been risky. It had ultimately saved her life and put an end to a serial killer's reign of terror. Sarah was arrested, and the trial was a media sensation. People were shocked that such a seemingly normal person could be capable of such atrocities. Sarah showed no remorse for what she had done. She said that she had enjoyed every moment of it, and that she would do it all again if she could. In the end, Sarah was sentenced to life in prison. She would spend the rest of her days behind bars, reliving her twisted fantasies over and over again in her mind. The city breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that the serial killer who had haunted them for so long was finally off the streets. But for the families of Sarah's victims, the pain and trauma would never truly go away. It's difficult to provide a specific lesson in the story. However, in general, it's important to recognize that violence and criminal behavior are never acceptable solutions to any problem, and that seeking help and support is always a better option. Additionally, it's important to be aware of your surroundings, trust your instincts, and report any suspicious behavior to the authorities. It's also important to understand the dangers and consequences of kidnapping and to take steps to protect yourself and those around you from potential harm. Finally, it's important to remember that everyone has the right to safety and respect, regardless of their gender, race, ethnicity, or any other characteristic. We should all strive to create a world where violence and discrimination are not tolerated, and where everyone can live free from fear. Love life, because love is the best plan to conquer the world. If anyone has to get it, win his heart, love him. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more stories.